I've always been the one who kept things together, even when no one noticed. Especially when no one noticed. From the time I was around 9, it felt like I stopped being a kid and started being the third parent in the house. I'm the older sister, by 4 years, and somehow that automatically made me the responsible one. While other kids got to be just that. Kids, I was folding laundry, babysitting my brother, and cleaning up after dinner before I even had homework done. I was the one who got straight A's, who followed every rule, who took on part-time jobs in high school to buy my own clothes. I never asked for much because I knew better. My parents weren't poor, but they weren't generous either. Not with money, not with time, and definitely not with praise. I once came home with a certificate for being the top student in my grade, and my mom's reaction was, "That's what's expected of you." Then there was my younger brother, Kyle. He could do no wrong even when he did everything wrong. Kyle was the golden child. Baby. The one who always just needed a little more time, or was going through a phase. He didn't care about school, rarely did his chores, and had a talent for conveniently disappearing when work needed to be done. Yet every time he messed up, the blame somehow shifted toward me. "You should have helped him study," or "Why didn't you remind him about the project?" As if I wasn't already juggling my own schoolwork, job, and responsibilities. I still remember the year I turned 16. I used my birthday money and saved wages from my weekend job at a local bookstore to buy myself a second-hand laptop. Kyle turned 16 4 years later and was gifted a brand new gaming PC. No questions asked. He needs it for school, they said. The same school he was barely passing. He got grounded maybe once in his life, and even then, he was still allowed to hang out with friends because he needs social time. Me. I was once grounded for rolling my eyes during dinner. I wish I were joking. Looking back, I realize my parents didn't appreciate me, they used me. I was the built-in babysitter, the emotional punching bag, the backup adult. But I kept my head down and told myself it was just temporary. Once I left for college, things would be different. Spoiler alert, they weren't. College was supposed to be my fresh start. A chance to finally focus on myself, to be somewhere that didn't constantly remind me I was only valued for what I could do for other people. I worked my ass off in high school to earn a partial scholarship, and I filled the rest with student loans and part-time jobs. During the week I went to class and studied. On weekends, I waitressed double shifts just to make ends meet. It was exhausting, but it was mine. No one handed it to me. Meanwhile, Kyle coasted through high school by the skin of his teeth. He got accepted to a local community college. And my parents acted like he'd just gotten into Harvard. "We're so proud of him," my mom beamed at his graduation, while I stood quietly in the corner. No one had even shown up to mine, except for a rushed photo and a "we're really busy with your brother's" thing. But the celebration didn't last long. Kyle dropped out by the end of his first semester. Too stressed, apparently. I later found out he'd barely shown up to class. Instead, he spent most of his time sleeping, gaming, and hanging out with his girlfriend. Naturally, he moved back home, and of course he wasn't expected to pay rent. "He's figuring things out," they said. Apparently, figuring things out included sitting on the couch for 18 months straight. Around that time, my parents started dropping subtle comments during our calls. It always started with a seemingly innocent, "How's work going?" which quickly turned into, "Your father's car needs repairs," or "We've been falling behind on a few bills." First, I offered small amounts, 20 here, 50 there. But it quickly escalated. When Kyle racked up $600 in credit card debt ordering food and online games, guess who got the call? "We don't want to ruin his credit," my mom said. "And you know we've done so much for you over the years. This is just what families do." What families do. That phrase became a weapon. Anytime I hesitated to help, I was reminded that they raised me, fed me, and kept a roof over my head, as if those weren't the bare minimum responsibilities of being a parent. The guilt was endless. I'd be working overtime, barely scraping together enough for rent and groceries, and still I'd find myself sending money home while eating instant noodles for dinner. It wasn't just money. They wanted my time, my attention, my emotional labor. When my dad lost his job, I became the unofficial financial planner of the family. I was asked to help them set up budgets, review expenses, look into credit options, despite barely being out of college myself. And when Kyle accidentally overdrew his bank account again, my mom called me crying. Not at him for doing it, but at me for not stepping in sooner. There was no recognition. No thank you. Just this never-ending expectation that because I was doing well, I owed it to everyone else to carry them too. I started to realize I wasn't being treated like a daughter. I was being treated like a backup plan. I told myself it was temporary, that once things stabilized, they'd stop leaning on me. But deep down I think I already knew the truth. For them, this wasn't a phase. It was the new normal. And I was starting to crack. The call came on a Thursday evening. I was just getting home from work, still in my heels, balancing a bag of groceries in one hand and my phone in the other. My mom's name flashed on the screen, and for a moment I considered letting it go to voicemail. But some old habit, the same one that made me a people-pleasing child, made me swipe to answer. She didn't even say hello. "Honey, your brother has decided to give college another try." I blinked, setting the groceries down on the kitchen counter. "Okay. We're really proud of him. He's been looking at programs. He just needs a little help to get started again." There it was. "How much?" I asked flatly. She hesitated. "Well, tuition is about $4,200 for the first semester. And then there's books, supplies. Maybe a laptop." He's really motivated this time. I stared at the wall. My jaw clenched. Why can't he apply for financial aid? "He doesn't qualify," she said quickly. "His grades weren't great last time, but he's older now. He's maturing." I stayed silent, and in that pause she went in for the kill. "Sweetheart, you're doing so well now. You have a good job. A nice apartment. Your brother's trying to get his life together. Don't you want to help him succeed?" There was again that tone. The manipulation wrapped in faux concern. I could hear my father breathing in the background, and then he took the phone. "You know we've always been there for you," he said. "It's time you did the same." I swallowed hard. My heart was racing, but my voice stayed even. "No." Silence. Then, "What did you say?" I said no. "I'm not paying for Kyle to blow through another semester of school he won't even finish. I've done enough." "You're being selfish," my dad snapped. "Family means stepping up." Could have screamed. I had stepped up. I'd been stepping up since I was a teenager, since before Kyle could tie his own shoes. I'd given and given until there was nothing left. And now, when I finally said no, suddenly I was the bad guy. That night Kyle texted me. "Ugh. Didn't know you were such a stingy bitch. Kyle, Mom said you're turning your back on us. Enjoy your rich bitch life." I didn't reply. I sat there staring at my ceiling for hours. I thought about the overtime hours I'd worked, the months I'd gone without buying anything for myself just to send money home. I thought about how I'd paid off part of Kyle's credit card debt just the year before, thinking I was helping him start over. And then a week later, I found out the real betrayal. I was talking to my cousin Michelle, who lives in the same town as my parents. She mentioned in passing how cool it was that Kyle got a custom-built gaming laptop for his birthday. Pause. "Wait, what? A new laptop?" "Yeah," she said. "Didn't your parents tell you?" "He said your mom had to go without some treatments for a few weeks because money was tight, but she wanted to make sure he had what he needed." I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. That money. I had wired it directly to my mother when she told me she needed help paying for her medication. She said insurance wouldn't cover it, and she was scared about skipping doses. I sent her $800 that same day, no questions asked. And she gave it to Kyle for a laptop. That was the moment something snapped inside me. All the years of being the dependable one, the quiet one, the invisible backbone of a family that took everything and gave nothing, it all boiled over. I realized they weren't just taking me for granted. They were using me. And I was done letting them. After finding out my mother used the money I sent for her medication to buy Kyle a gaming laptop, something inside me shifted. It wasn't just anger. It was clarity. For the first time in my life, I saw them for who they really were. Not struggling parents doing their best, but manipulative people who saw me as a bottomless ATM. So I stopped. I stopped sending money. I stopped answering every call. I stopped playing the role of the good daughter, who sacrificed everything in the name of family. At first, it felt like I was holding my breath underwater. I kept waiting for the guilt to flood in and drown me. But it didn't. What did come was silence, at least for a while. My parents didn't reach out much that first month. Maybe they thought it was a phase or that I'd eventually cave like always. But I didn't. Instead, I started focusing on me. I cut back on expenses and began saving aggressively. I created a separate savings account they didn't know about. I started building an emergency fund. I signed up for a free financial literacy course online and even met with a financial advisor. I was done pouring from an empty cup. Then came the second blow. I got a call from a credit card company I didn't recognize. They were following up on a late payment for a card I never opened. I thought it was a scam at first, until they confirmed the card had been opened in my name. The address on file, my parents' home. Felt sick. I pulled my credit report that same night. There it was. A store card I never applied for, maxed out. A personal loan application that had thankfully been denied. They were using my name, my credit, my future. The betrayal cut deeper than anything else before. It wasn't just emotional manipulation anymore. It was identity theft. I took a day off work and drove straight to a legal aid center. I sat with an attorney who helped me file a fraud report, freeze my credit, and write up cease and desist letters. I opened new bank accounts, changed all my passwords, alerted the credit bureaus. And most importantly, I started documenting everything. I printed out bank transfers, saved old text messages, recorded phone calls. Every lie, every request, every transaction. It all went into a folder labeled, "In case they try me." That was the moment I truly stepped into power. Not because I wanted revenge, not yet anyway, but because I was finally protecting myself. Something I should have done a long time ago. Cutting contact wasn't easy. I still got texts from my mom, usually guilt-laced messages like, "We miss you. Kyle's been struggling. We just don't understand why you're being so cold." I never replied. Occasionally my dad would try the tough love angle. "If you think this behavior is okay, you're not the daughter we raised." He was right about one thing. I wasn't the daughter they raised anymore. I was done being used. Done being lied to. Done sacrificing myself for people who wouldn't cross the street for me. And while they didn't know it yet, I was just getting started. When I finally decided to confront them, I came prepared. Not just emotionally but legally. I had a folder in my hand and fire in my chest. Years of guilt, manipulation, and silent suffering had built up to this moment. And I was done being the obedient daughter who took every punch with a smile. I drove to their house on a Saturday afternoon. I didn't tell them I was coming. I wanted to see their faces when I laid everything out. Kyle was sprawled on the couch, playing video games naturally. My parents were in the kitchen. My mom looked up when I walked in, eyes wide with fake surprise. "Oh, honey. You're here." I dropped the folder on the table. "What's this?" my dad asked, already suspicious. I looked them both dead in the eye. "Proof. Of what you did in my name." Silence. Inside the folder. Copies of the credit card statements, the account applications, the addresses listed. Their address, not mine. Printouts of the credit report. Screenshots of my conversations with the card company. A notarized affidavit of fraud. It was all there. "I'm giving you one chance," I said. "One. You pay me back for every dollar charged under my name, or I press charges." My mom gasped, hand flying to her chest like she'd been shot. "You would do this to your family." My father turned red. "You ungrateful brat. After everything we've done for you." I let out a laugh, sharp, humorless. "What exactly have you done for me? Besides steal, lie, and manipulate me since I was a child?" Kyle finally paused his game long enough to glance over. "Jesus, are you still on this?" he scoffed. "It's just a card. You act like we killed your dog. I turned to him slowly. It's identity theft, Kyle. A felony. He rolled his eyes. Whatever. You're not gonna do anything. You're all bark. So I did. 3 days later I filed a police report. I didn't warn them. I didn't explain. I submitted everything. The documentation, the timeline, the forged applications. I told the truth, something they never could manage. And within a week, they felt the consequences. First came the bank notices. The account I had unknowingly been listed as a co-owner on, frozen. Collections started showing up at their door. Their mailbox filled with letters demanding payment. Then came Kyle's meltdown. Turns out the car he'd been driving, the one my parents had helped him get, was technically in my name. I'd signed the papers years ago as a favor to help him qualify. Back when I still believed they wouldn't screw me over. I revoked his access and repossessed it through the bank. He came unglued. He texted me nonstop. Called me a traitor. Told me I'd ruined his life. Said he couldn't get to work now. Work he'd had for all of 2 months. My parents called too. This time they weren't angry, they were begging. My mom cried on voicemail. My dad sounded smaller than I'd ever heard him. Please withdraw the complaint, he said. We didn't know it would go this far. But I didn't withdraw anything. Because they knew exactly how far it could go. They just didn't think I'd ever have the guts to take it there. I did. And for the first time they were the ones dealing with the fallout. Was it satisfying? Absolutely. But more than that, it was liberating. I didn't do it out of revenge. I did it to reclaim the pieces of myself they had chipped away for years. My credit, my security, my boundaries, my dignity, and most importantly, my freedom. I walked away from that mess not just financially protected, but emotionally untethered. I owed them nothing, not anymore. And for once, they were the ones left cleaning up the damage. After everything unraveled, the silence didn't last long. At first, it was endless calls and texts. My mom left tearful voicemails, alternating between guilt trips and dramatic sobs. My dad tried a firmer tone, accusing me of destroying the family, and saying I needed to be the bigger person. It was always the same script. Twist the knife, then beg me to patch the wound. I didn't answer a single one. Eventually I blocked their numbers. Not just theirs, Kyle's too. After his car was repossessed, he went on a full-blown social media rampage. I became the villain of his Instagram stories, the subject of cryptic Facebook posts. Some people forget who raised them. Greedy fake family members get what's coming. Could have responded. I could have aired all the dirty laundry and torched whatever bridges were still standing. But I didn't. I refused to let him bait me into a public fight. I had already taken back control. Silence was just another way of keeping it. Then came the waves from extended family. Some reached out confused or angry. An aunt messaged me to say I should be ashamed of how I treated my parents. A cousin called and told me, family doesn't sue family. They all spoke from the outside. People who had no idea what it was like to be the one always holding the family up while being trampled by it. But not all of them condemned me. Quietly, a few reached out with a different tone. My older cousin Maya texted, "Good for you. I wish I had your courage." An uncle I barely knew messaged me saying, "Don't let them guilt you. You did the right thing." Even my grandmother, in a rare moment of honesty, said, "Sometimes you have to leave people behind to save yourself." It wasn't all comforting. Going no contact wasn't some magic relief. There were days I questioned myself, nights when I lay in bed and wondered if I was being too harsh. If maybe, somehow, I was the bad guy. But then I'd look at the documents, the fake accounts, the bank statements, the messages calling me names when I finally said, "Enough." And I'd remember. This wasn't about a grudge. It was about survival. Cutting them off didn't just give me peace. Gave me clarity. For the first time my life was mine. My decisions, my money, my time. All finally belonged to me. I could breathe without waiting for the next crisis. I could plan without budgeting for someone else's irresponsibility. I could exist without feeling like a disappointment for simply having boundaries. Going no contact was the hardest thing I've ever done. And the best decision I've ever made. It's been almost 2 years since I cut them off. Since then, my life has quietly, steadily transformed. I bought a house. Just a small one-bedroom place, but it's mine. No one else's name on the title. No guilt attached to the keys. I got promoted last fall, and for the first time in my adult life, I have savings that aren't earmarked for someone else's emergency. I also started therapy. At first, it was uncomfortable. I'd spent so long convincing myself that being useful was the only way to be loved. I didn't know how to exist without that role. But over time I learned something important. Love without respect isn't love. It's control. And I was done being controlled. The most common question I get, from friends, from extended family, even sometimes from strangers when the topic comes up, is, "Do you hate them?" The answer is no. You don't. I don't lie awake at night stewing in rage. I don't fantasize about revenge. I don't even wish them harm. I just don't owe them my life anymore. And I refuse to enable people who showed me, over and over again, that my only value to them was what I could give. I used to think family was unconditional, that you stick around no matter what, that blood meant something. But now I know the truth. Family is supposed to protect you, not drain you. Supposed to feel like safety, not servitude. I've built my own version of that now. I have friends who cheer for me, not take from me. A partner who doesn't flinch when I say no. A therapist who reminds me that boundaries aren't betrayal, they're survival. And most importantly, I have me, the version of myself that was buried for so long under guilt and obligation. I still get pangs of sadness now and then. Grief for what could have been. For the version of family I never really had. But I've made peace with it. Because at the end of the day, sometimes family isn't who you're born to. It's who respects you.